Hello and welcome to part one of the Haralson bag sew along. I'm happy you're joining along, and I think we're going to cover the complete project in 2 videos. If you've already purchased the pattern, there are a couple short videos on 2 of the steps that hopefully you already found the link for. They're in a nice little gray box, and you can click that link right within the PDF, and that'll take you to the videos. But anyway, today, part 1, we're going to start sewing through the bag start to finish, and yeah, I think we'll go through some of the features of the Haralson and then some of the supplies you'll need. Okay, so here's my Haralson bag. It's meant to be worn kind of crossbody like this. You can also wear it as a waist bag. You might want to shorten the strap a little bit, just depending on your figure, your waist size, and how you like to wear it, high or low. Just to let you know about that. But I prefer to wear it on the front. It's really easy to get into and out of. And then if I know I'm going to be moving around a lot, like on a dog walk, I'll move it to the back if I know I don't need to get in and out of it. So there's a couple ways to wear it. This is the leather and hardware closure. And it has an interior zipper. And then we'll take it off. There's the back zippered pocket. And this is the full back side of the bag. So it's a nice roomy pocket. You can definitely fit more than a phone, but I usually just have my phone in there. But it's really easy to get my phone in and out while I'm wearing it. I just unzip it, pull it out, zip it back up. So, but then it's nice and secure as well. So that's this style. This is a wax twill, and this is a cotton twill. And then it's lined with a quilting cotton. Here's another one. This has the locks closure. This is the locks hardware that you can get. It's just a small little button guy. It's really secure, and it's easy to get it closed, open and closed. It's just really simple. It's also really fun to install. It's pretty user-friendly. So if you've never installed one, it's quite easy. So we'll go through that later. And there's the zipper. Got a larger long wallet in it for this one. And then my last sample here is an all solid for the exterior with the turn lock closure. So the turn lock's really easy too. You can definitely do that one-handed, and it keeps it nice and secure. You know that it's latched, which is important. This is a dry oilskin. I think it's a really nice fabric for this bag. It's not too heavy and it's easy to sew through. So there's the sample. There's the back. So those are the 3 hardware options that you can choose from. There's probably a million ways that you can do it. So if you're feeling adventurous, you've made a lot of bags, you have some ideas, go for it. So turn lock, locks, and then the hardware clasp with the leather. Okay, so next we're going to go through some of the supplies you'll need. Okay, so I think I'm going to go over some of the fabrics that I recommend for the Haralson, and we'll just go over it piece by piece. So for the exterior fabric, that's this main floral here that goes all the way to the back. That's the exterior fabric, and I recommend a 6 to 8 ounce weight canvas. I think most manufacturers have a canvas that fall within this weight range. There's some really awesome prints, solids, anything in between really. This is a nice twill fabric from See You at 6. The other 2 were the Ruby Star canvases. All these are really great for this bag. I think they really work well. I wouldn't recommend going higher than an 8 ounce weight, especially if you're going to use the recommended interfacings. It's just going to get too bulky, too heavy. It's not going to look as nice, and it's going to be harder to sew. Another few options. So for the accent fabric, you could use, again, the cotton canvas if you'd like. Or I also recommend a wax twill. Now this is different than a wax canvas, it's lighter weight. And I think it's important that you note that it's a lighter weight fabric. So It does give nice body. You do not have to interface this, but that's just an option for that flap piece. This is a waxed twill on this flap. You can also use dry oilskin on the flap. There's tons of colors that dry oilskin comes in. There's just some of them. And like I showed you earlier before, this is a whole bag in the dry oilskin. And again, the dry oilskin, you do not have to use interfacing on. And then for the linings, I just recommend quilting cotton. So this gingham is a woven, but it's essentially a quilting cotton weight. So that's the linings for that interior as well as the pockets. So that is kind of an overview of the different fabric choices. I think, yeah, I think that kind of covers it for the fabrics. So next we'll go on to hardware and such. Oh, I also forgot to mention that beyond the wax twill that I showed, there's just regular cotton twill, which is also really readily available. That comes in a ton of colors, is fairly inexpensive, and yeah, those are just another great option for this bag as well. That's the, I use this cotton twill on the flap here in the black. Okay, so now we'll go through the rest of the supplies. This is the interfacing that you're going to use. This is a Pellon SF101. This is a fusible woven interfacing. You can also use the Vilene G700, I believe, is the equivalent from that brand. Yeah, so this is just a nice fusible interfacing, all-purpose. It's great for this bag, and we're going to do some layering with it. So that's that, and then you're going to need a couple of zippers. Here's an 8-inch zipper and a 6-inch zipper. You could also substitute in zipper by the yard. There's that. You'll need a 1/2 yard and then 2 zipper pulls for each of those zippers. And those cutting measurements are found within the pattern as you go along. So you could at least put the pulls on and get ready to start. The 8-inch zipper is for the back of the bag, and the 6-inch is for the interior. Next, you'll need cotton webbing. This is a 1-inch wide cotton webbing. I've got 1.5 yards here. This is just a really nice, makes a nice durable strap. You could also make your own out of fabric if you wanted. We're not going to go over that here, but this is really convenient. It's ready-made and all set to go. Along with that, you're going to need your strap hardware set. So this is a 1-inch wide webbing, and we're going to have 1-inch wide hardware that goes with it. So there are 2 1-inch D-rings, 1 1-inch strap slider, and 2 1-inch swivel clasps. Okay. And then we'll go over the different closure hardwares. So this is the hardware with the swivel clasp and leather. So that's a 3/4 inch wide piece of leather by about 12 inches long. We're going to cut that down into a couple pieces for the top and bottom closures here. And then you'll need this hardware. This is a 3/4 inch swivel clasp and a 3/4 inch D-ring. So that makes up this closure. And then you'll see here, these are the rivets. You're gonna need 3 rivets or 3 Chicago screws. So rivets look like this. They come in 2 parts. That's 1 rivet set. Chicago screws are very much the same. With the rivets, you'll need either a set of hand tools that set those or a hand press. And if you don't have either of those, then the Chicago screws are really great for substituting in. They just screw together. So you'll punch a hole and then they'll screw to secure. And so those are really very user-friendly as well. Okay, so that's for that type of closure. You can also use the locks. This is a locks fastener. It comes in 4 parts. There's these 2 main parts and then the washers that set them. So that's a locks. You'll also need the little key. The key is the tool. You'll just need 1 no matter how many locks you're going to use. That it allows you to tighten the locks into place. The last thing is a turn lock. This is the turn lock option. Let's see. So again, these are just some of the hardware options that you can use. So that's that. You could also use vinyl or other non-fraying textile for this closure instead of the leather if you're not wanting to use leather. Okay, so here are the different supplies you'll need for the bag. So it's a nice little variety, and yeah, lots of options here. Okay, these are the fabrics that I'm picking for this first sample. Throughout the sew along, I'm going to use actually be making 3 different bags so that I can show you the 3 different closure options. But this is my first one, the main one, and I'm going to use the leather and hardware option closure for this particular one. So let's get started cutting. Okay, so just a little bit of organization here. If you have the PDF, so for the PDF, I would recommend cutting off 2 sets of the pattern pieces so you can cut to the dotted line and just have those as a separate piece. Now, if you only intend to make this bag once, you can just print off 1 set and then cut your fabric, then trim this to your dotted line and then cut from there. But I just clipped the ones together since I've been making a bunch. So those are mine. And then there's also a few rectangular pieces, just a few. And I just pre-clip my little clover clips to them so that when I'm making it and cutting things, I can just keep organized that way. Okay, so we are going to be using the cutting instructions on page 3, and we're going to go piece by piece through each fabric. So I'm going to cut all the exterior fabrics, all the accent, all the lining, and then all the fusible woven interfacing. You're going to want to check out the cutting layouts on page 4 and 5. Those are like the map of where you're cutting your fabric and how it's cut from the fabric. So those are noted selvage to selvage, so you just want to lay your fabric out the same. And which one is the bottom. They're 2 different sizes, and just if you're got a lot of stuff on your table and you might mix them up, maybe make a little note and add that to them. So then the next part of my process is to just sort out the things that I need to fuse together. So I just kind of get all that prepared and ready to take over to the pressing board. And this is a little bit into the instructions, but I am going to trim off these seam allowances here just to reduce the bulk along that join of the strap connector. Again, no interfacing on dry oilskin. I'm just going to set that in my non-ironing pile. Okay, so for this exterior front panel, that gets one that is cut to the dotted line first, and then one that is the full width, or the full size of the pattern. So that goes on the exterior fabric. And then an effort to reduce the bulk along the side seams especially. This one is cut to the dotted line interfacing, and that's going to go on the lining piece, the wrong side of the lining piece. So there's my stack, and I'm going to take this over and get those fused in place. Okay, the other thing that you can also bring over while fusing this are these end tabs, and this is in the instructions part, but I'm going to, since I'm here at the ironing board and it's one of the first steps, I'm going to press the one short end to the wrong side by 1/4 inch for each one of these little rectangles. So that's what those look like. I do recommend using spray starch as well. I use those on all the pieces. I press them first and then do any additional folding. I like to fuse this piece, this is the exterior back, with the seam allowance. This is where the zipper is going to be, so that's just a slightly, that's a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. If you center it, it's going to be fine too, but just if you want to get it snugged up there. Okay, so these first few steps go pretty quickly. So I'm just going to gather my materials by my sewing machine so that I can do them together, because there's very little pressing right at this point. So grab your strap connectors, the strap holders, that's your webbing, your long webbing strap, your 8-inch zipper, that's for the back, and then your strap hardware pieces. So we'll start with those. And so first they're the 1-inch D-rings, and I'm just going to slide my webbing through and then just baste it in place. So there's the 2 strap holders, and then we'll grab the strap connector pieces, and they're going to be folded right side together. And this is the end that we're going to just tuck this little strap holder and D-ring into. So I just kind of mush it up to the top edge there, and then you can put a couple pins in it here if you'd like. And then you're sewing this with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I just trim this little corner. And then you'll want to grab in the middle here and just pull on that D-ring. And then I'm going to take it over and give it a little press. You can top stitch across these edges, just leave that one open, you don't need it there. I prefer to leave them non-top stitched, but you can choose. So then I'll do the same for the other. Okay, so I'm just going to set those aside for now, and then we'll work on the strap. So here's my long piece, and if you noted in the cutting instructions, you can make this longer. The 1.5 yards covers some extra, but what I'm going to do is thread this webbing up and over this center bar of the strap slider, and then I'm just going to tuck this raw end under, and I'm going to sew just a little rectangular box. You could get fancy and do some X's, you could use some rivets, but this will hold that in place nicely. So then I've got my long strap. Here's my folded end under, and I'm just gonna kind of have my hand lead that flat so that I don't get it twisted. Then I'm gonna thread on my swivel clasp. And then I'm gonna go up and over that center bar again. Okay. So that's what that'll look like. Got the swivel clasp, the strap slider, and then this one raw end. So that's where we're going to use our other strap, or other swivel clasp. We'll just thread that through and bend it back on itself. Again, tuck the raw edge under and sew it in place. Okay, so there's my strap. And next we're going to do the zipper end tabs. So I've got my zipper. If you're using your zipper by the yard, you're going to want to look at the tip under the instructions and then cut it to that length. So I've got a standard 8-inch zipper right here, and we're going to sandwich these end tabs along either end. So what I like to do is I've got my glue pen, and this just holds it in place really nice until you get it over to your machine. And I just like to pay attention if I do have a directional fabric like this one. If my zipper has got the pull on the left like this, I'll just make sure that those are facing up. So I'm just going to put some glue and butt it right up to that metal end stop. And then you can put a little extra glue here so it doesn't wiggle around as much. So that's nice and secure. And then the same for this other end. Okay, so now those zipper end tabs are on, and then I'm just going to stitch down this folded edge. Just be cautious of if you're using metal, just kind of make sure that your needle isn't going to jump over there. Okay, so then your zipper is all set. Okay, so now I have the zipper all set. I'm going to grab my exterior back piece. Again, if you have a directional fabric, just make sure you're putting your zipper on your top edge here. So I'm going to lay my zipper right side down. The zipper pull is at the left, and I'm just going to make sure that it's centered. You can either do a little clip into the zipper tape or make a little marking. It's up to you. I can just do a little finger press, and that will give me my center mark there. So again, zipper is right side down, center it. The zipper pull is at the left side here, and you can pin or clip it in place. Oh, and I forgot to mention that you can trim these little zipper end tabs to the width of your zipper tape. Okay, so that's centered, and then I'm just going to baste it in place right along this top edge. And then you can just trim off those extra little edges down here. Okay, so I'm going to grab that exterior zipper pocket lining. I've got that labeled, so I'll set that over there. And then I'm going to place that right side down. So this is a square piece, so it doesn't technically matter which edge you place on the edge here. But if you do have a print that's running directionally, you're going to want to make sure that is facing downward. I've just got a gingham here, so I'm just going to line it up. Okay, so that's pinned in place, and then I'm just going to sew across this top edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's what that'll look like. Okay, so now that that's seam sewn, then we're going to flip it so the fabrics are wrong side together. And I'm going to press it really well along this folded edge here. And then we'll top stitch. Okay, so that is pressed, and then I'm going to top stitch through both the exterior and the pocket lining layers right along this seam here. Okay, so now that my top stitching is done, I'm just going to fold this. This is my zipper pocket lining up to meet the wrong side of this zipper, and just make sure your fabrics are right sides together, and then we'll just bring it to that edge and pin in place, and then we can baste it. Okay, so that's pinned. This is what the back side looks like. There's a folded edge right here, and then we're going to sew right along this top edge just to tack that in place. Okay, so that's in place. And then the last step for this, before we add the flap, is we're just going to baste these sides together so they're not just flapping around when we're sewing further on in the project. So we're just going to baste along this edge here and this edge here through all the layers, and you just have to go down to where that folded edge is. Okay, now we need to grab the flap. This is dry oilskin, so it's not going to have interfacing on it. There's no real right or wrong side for this as far as I know. Normally, if you would have a cotton twill or cotton canvas and you had it interfaced, this is your wrong side. You would have interfacing here. So I'm going to lay that right side down on top of this exterior back and align it to that top edge, and just make sure your corners are aligned here and pin it in place. Okay, so now that's pinned, I'm just going to sew right along this edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so again, this is your wrong side facing up, and then you're just going to press this over. With dry oilskin, you can just get away with finger pressing. If you're using cotton canvas or twill, you'll probably just want to press it with the iron well. And then we're going to top stitch right along this edge here through all the layers, catching that seam allowance in the back. Okay, so now we've got that flap top stitch in place. I'm just going to slide the zipper open a little ways so that we don't get it in the way here for this next part. And we're just going to baste these strap connectors on. And so I placed these with this top folded edge a 1/4 inch above the zipper. It doesn't have to be exact. That's where they go. And just pin those in place, and then we'll baste them in place on each side. Okay, and just make sure they look even, and then we're going to baste in place along each of these edges. Okay, so there is my exterior back all assembled. Okay, so next we are going to insert the interior pocket. So we're going to need our interior zipper pocket lining and your main interior panel piece. And so we'll take that interior zipper pocket lining. Get that laid out. So this piece you can't tell because it's gingham, but there's a right and wrong side. If yours doesn't have a right and wrong, you just choose. So then we're going to make the box that where the zipper is going to peek through. From this top short end, I'm just going to mark a horizontal line 1 inch down from that top edge. I just use a mechanical pencil to do this because I can see it pretty well. And then we're going to make a line 3/8 of an inch below that. If you're using zipper by the yard, you can make it a 1/2 inch below just to accommodate. Usually they have a little bit of a wider tooth on them. So, and then we're going to measure in 5/8 of an inch from each edge. Make a vertical line. And that is the opening for our 6-inch zipper. Okay, so now that we have that box drawn, I'm just going to make a mark where the center is. That's going to help us on our next step. Make a little mark there. So then we're going to grab our main interior panel, and then we're going to center this interior zipper pocket lining on that. And it's going to be 4.5 inches down from this top edge there. So we'll just scoot that down and just make sure that is centered. I just go ahead and check on each side as well to make sure that looks right. And then we're just going to pin it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it closer here so you can see that line. Now we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to stitch along that box. And again, this is right sides together, so this is the wrong side of this fabric. So one other thing to note here is if you're using a directional fabric for this pocket, the direction is going to be facing down. So you're going to kind of want to peek here. If this would be your right side of your fabric, if that motif is facing downward, that would be the correct way to place it. So yeah, then we'll take it over to the machine and sew along that box and go on to the next step. Okay, so there's my box, and then I just like to use my scissors for this next step, but we're going to cut a line straight down the center and then angle out to each of these corners, clipping right up to that stitching but not through it. That's going to give you a nice crisp corner the closer you get to that without clipping it. Okay, so that hole is cut, and then we're going to take it over to the pressing station and get it all situated. Okay, so we've got it sewn here, and then what I'm going to do is just push this lining through that cut opening so that we're going to take that fabric and bring it to the back side. So just keep tucking it in, bringing it through that cut opening. Okay, so then this is where I like to have the iron ready, and I kind of start on these corners and give them a nice little gentle tug, and that should give you a nice crisp opening. If you see a lot of puckering, you might want to go back in with your scissors and give it a good, just make sure that corner is clipped right up to that stitch line. And then I'm just going to keep pressing it really well along that whole opening. Okay, so for this part, if you have a really small piece of this double-sided tape, this is a super skinny one that's pretty sticky. I use that along this zipper edge to kind of hold it in place behind that opening. You could also use regular glue, you could use pins. Most of the time, I don't even use anything. I am not too fussy on it being perfect. I've put enough of these in where I just know that it's not going to look like I was in a factory making it. So I think just do the best you can with the tools you've got. But this double-sided tape really is pretty handy for these zippers. So you just peel that little protective backing off, and then I like to lay it flat on a surface and then kind of situate it. And just make sure that your zipper pull gets brought to the inside of that opening. Then you can even press it in place a little. Okay, so then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch all around that box. Okay, so now that I've top stitched that zipper in place, you can flip it over to the back and get rid of any extra threads that are hanging out back there. And then we can fold this pocket lining piece up so that these short edges meet. And then we're just going to pin that in place. And you can kind of fold that top edge over to kind of expose this. Okay, so then I'm going to take it over and sew it, and I'm going to start along this edge, going up the side, bend this top edge over, keep going across the top, and then back down this other side. So now we've got the assembled back all together, and we've inserted the zipper pocket into what will be the lining. So I think now is a great time to step away and take a break. We're going to end part 1 here of the sew along, and then I will see you next time on part 2. And see you then.